What happens when a millionaire real estate mogul walks into the most famous municipal courtroom in the world and tries to hold justice itself hostage? You are about to witness a level of arrogance that borders on clinical insanity. Usually, people enter Judge Caprio's courtroom hoping for mercy. They hope for compassion. But today, you're going to meet a man who walks in demanding obedience. Imagine standing before a judge and threatening him not with legal counsel, but with your own wife's political influence. This isn't just a story about a drunk driver or a moment of road rage. This is about the exact instant a man who has hidden behind his spouse's power for 2 decades discovers that some things cannot be solved with a phone call to the right people. You need to stay until the very end of this video because the betrayal that unfolds in the final minutes is so cold, so devastating, and so unbelievably satisfying, it will leave you speechless. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Are you team justice, or do you think money can buy freedom? Because what Judge Caprio does to this arrogant man and what the man's own wife does to him needs to be seen worldwide to be believed. It is a tense, rainy Tuesday morning in Providence, Rhode Island. The courtroom is full. Judge Caprio, a man known for his patience and empathy, is working through a heavy docket. But at 10:15 a.m., the atmosphere in the room shifts. The clerk calls the name Richard Sterling. Richard Sterling is no ordinary defendant. He is a 55-year-old real estate developer whose name graces half of the city's luxury condos. He is a man who hasn't heard the word no since the 1990s. He approaches the podium not with fear, but with irritation. To him, this isn't a legal proceeding. It's a scheduling conflict. Judge Caprio picks up the file and even hesitates at its weight. The charges are severe: aggressive reckless driving, assault with a deadly weapon, specifically, his vehicle, and the most damning of all, fleeing the scene of an accident involving serious bodily harm. These aren't traffic tickets. These are felonies. But as the judge begins to read the details of the night that sent a pregnant woman to the hospital, Richard Sterling does the unthinkable. He yawns. He has no idea that the woman he plans to invoke, the woman he believes will save him, is actually holding the match that will ignite his entire world. To understand the rage you're about to witness in the courtroom, you need to understand the violence on the asphalt. It was the afternoon of November 12th. The roads were slick from an earlier drizzle. Richard Sterling was behind the wheel of his metallic gray Porsche Panamera, a 2-ton, $150,000 missile of German engineering. He was late for a tea at the Wanamoya Country Club. To a man like Richard, traffic isn't a shared public space, it's an obstacle course he believes he deserves to conquer. In the lane ahead of him was Sarah Jenkins. Sarah, a 26-year-old pediatric nurse, had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift. She was driving her 10-year-old Toyota Corolla, exhausted, carefully, and most importantly, 7 months pregnant with her first child. She was doing the speed limit in the passing lane, overtaking a semi-truck when Richard Sterling roared up behind her. Witnesses said Richard didn't just tailgate. He nearly mounted her bumper, flashed his high beams, and blared his horn. He was furious that this cheap car dared exist in his lane. When Sarah finally found a gap to let him pass, most people would have sped away. But Richard Sterling felt disrespected. He felt compelled to teach her a lesson. He accelerated, cut sharply in front of her, leaving inches to spare, and then slammed on his brakes. A brake check, a malicious move designed to terrify the driver behind you, but on wet pavement at 65 miles per hour. It wasn't a prank. It was physics. Sarah slammed on her brakes to avoid a collision. Her Corolla lost traction, hydroplaned, and spun 180 degrees across 2 lanes. The impact was catastrophic. Her car slammed into the steel median guardrail. The rear crumpled like a soda can. The vehicle flipped once, landing on its roof in the breakdown lane. Inside, strapped in by her seatbelt, surrounded by shattered glass and the hiss of a punctured radiator, was a terrified mother clutching her stomach, praying her baby was alive. And this is where the story shifts from accident to crime. Richard Sterling pulled over. He stepped out of his Porsche, looked at the smoking, overturned car. He didn't run to help. He didn't call 911. He walked to the back of his own vehicle, wiped a smudge off his rear fender, checked for scratches, and seeing none, got back in. He left a pregnant woman upside down in a ditch because he didn't want to miss his golf game. 2 hours later, Rhode Island State Police tracked the Porsche to the country club. They found Richard on the 14th hole. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't shaking with guilt. He was lining up a birdie putt. When the officers forced him onto the manicured grass, he didn't ask, "Is she okay?" or "Did I hurt someone?" He looked up, spat out his gum, and delivered a line that would haunt him forever: "Get your hands off this suit. Do you have any idea who I wake up next to every morning?
Now, Richard stands in Judge Caprio's courtroom.
But standing implies respect. He is lounging.
He isn't wearing the standard orange jumpsuit of a man who spent the night in jail. He posted $50,000 bail within 20 minutes.
He's back in a fresh three-piece Italian suit. Cufflinks glint under the fluorescent lights. He checks his gold Rolex as if this hearing were a boring business meeting that could have been an email. He smirks, chewing gum rhythmically, radiating the toxicity of a lifetime of having others clean up his messes. The bailiff asks for his name. Richard sighs into the microphone. Richard Sterling. And let's make this quick. I have a lunch reservation at 12:30. A murmur spreads through the room. Did he just rush the judge? Judge Caprio ignores it and begins reading the charges: aggressive reckless driving, assault with a dangerous weapon, endangering an unborn child. Usually, defendants look down at unborn child. They cry. They show shame. Richard rolls his eyes, shaking his head as if the charges were an exaggeration, when Judge Caprio asks, "How do you plead?" Richard leans into the microphone, flashing a shark-like smile. "Look, Frank, can I call you Frank? We're men of the world here. Let's cut the theatrics. I know how this works. The city needs revenue, right? I'll write a check to the victims fund right now. Double the fine. Whatever number you want. Let's pay the tab and get this over with. I'm very busy." Judge Caprio freezes. He slowly removes his glasses, placing them on the bench, a signal that things are about to go very, very wrong. The judge asks, "Excuse me? You are facing felony charges that could put you in a cell for years, charges involving a pregnant woman you left upside down on a highway, and you're worried about your schedule?" Richard shrugs, adjusting his silk tie. "It was an accident, Judge. She shouldn't have been camping in the left lane. Passing lane, not a parking lot. If she's fragile, maybe she shouldn't drive. I'm the victim of slow traffic. Besides, my insurance will handle her. That's why I pay premiums. Money fixes these things. Money fixes these things." With those 4 words, Richard Sterling didn't just insult the court, he declared war on it. He truly believes his wallet is a get-out-of-jail-free card. But he's about to discover that Judge Caprio doesn't accept American Express. The judge lets the silence hang in the courtroom for a moment. He ignores Richard's offer of a check. He reaches into the case file and pulls out a single sheet of paper, handwritten, the penmanship shaky and uneven. He looks at Richard and says, "Mr. Sterling, you keep talking about money. You keep talking about your time, but I don't see Sarah Jenkins here today. Do you know why?" Richard smirks. "Probably because she's embarrassed about her driving skills." Judge Caprio slams the paper down on the bench, a rare display of anger. He says, "She isn't here because she is on strict bed rest at Rhode Island Hospital, hooked up to a fetal monitor 24 hours a day, praying the stress of the crash didn't detach her placenta. She wrote this letter from a hospital bed. And since you're so busy, I'm going to make you listen to every single word." The judge begins to read. Sarah's words aren't legal jargon, they are raw, terrifying recollections of a nightmare. She describes the metal crushing around her like a soda can being stepped on. She recalls the smell of airbag dust and burnt rubber filling her lungs. The judge reads, "I remember hanging upside down in my seatbelt. The roof was crushed in. I could taste blood in my mouth. I couldn't feel my legs, but I didn't care. All I could do was hold my stomach with one hand and scream for my baby. I waited for the man who hit me to come help. I waited for footsteps, but all I heard was an engine revving and driving away. I thought I was going to die alone in that ditch." The letter continues. Sarah describes the aftermath, the night terrors, the fact that she can't hear a car horn without trembling. She mentions having to use her savings, money meant for a crib and diapers, for emergency physical therapy because her insurance dragged its feet. The judge looks at Richard and asks, she ends the letter asking, "Why did he leave me? Was I not worth stopping for? Does that mean nothing to you, sir? You left a pregnant woman upside down in a ditch while you checked your bumper for scratches. That isn't an accident. That is cruelty." Richard sighs, rolling his eyes again. He looks at his lawyer, then back at the judge, genuinely confused as to why this is such a big deal. "Frank, please don't be dramatic. It was a fender bender. If she was really hurt, she wouldn't be writing letters. She'd be in the morgue. She's milking it. That's what people like her do. They see a nice car, a suit, a lottery ticket. She shouldn't have been in the left lane. If she's fragile, she should have stayed home.
I'm the victim of slow traffic and a hysteria campaign. The courtroom gasps. He didn't just dismiss her pain, he blamed her for it. He called a woman fighting for her unborn child a drama queen.
Judge Caprio's face turns stone cold. The compassionate judge is gone.
The Punisher has arrived.
Quietly, he asks, the victim of slow traffic? Is that what you think this is?
Richard Sterling has just crossed a line from which there is no return.
He thinks he's winning.
He has no idea he just dug his own grave.
The atmosphere in the courtroom shifts. You could feel the air leave the room.
Judge Caprio, visibly disgusted by the lottery ticket comment, decides a fine is no longer sufficient. He looks down at the docket, then back at Richard. Mr. Sterling, in 30 years on this bench, I have seen mistakes and I have seen malice.
You have shown me nothing but malice. You are a danger to the public.
Therefore, I am not interested in your checkbook.
I am revoking your bail. I am remanding you to custody pending a full psychiatric evaluation and sentencing.
The word custody hits Richard like a slap. The smirk vanishes. The cool, detached millionaire snaps.
He isn't used to being told what to do, certainly not by a municipal judge. He slams his hand on the defense table. Custody? Are you out of your mind, Frank? You think you can lock me up like a common criminal?
Do you have a death wish for your career? Judge Caprio warns him to lower his voice, but Richard is past listening. He points a finger at the bench, shouting, "No, you listen to me.
You clearly didn't do your homework. Do you know who I am? More importantly, do you know who my wife is? I am married to Eleanor Sterling, district attorney of this city. The woman who prosecutes the criminals you see every day. The woman who decides which judges get easy dockets and which ones get buried." The courtroom goes silent. He just did the unthinkable. He didn't just name drop, he threatened a sitting judge using the district attorney's political influence.
He continues, "She is the Iron Lady of Providence. Frank, you serve at her pleasure. If you embarrass me here, if you try to put me in cuffs, I will make one phone call. I will have your docket audited so fast your head will spin. You'll be investigating parking tickets in the basement of City Hall by tomorrow morning. So I suggest you apologize, reinstate my bail, and let me walk out before I ruin you." Richard is panting, chest heaving, waiting for the judge to back down.
He expects fear. He expects an apology.
He truly believes the rules are rigged in his favor. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button, because Richard is about to learn a painful lesson. Name dropping only works if the person you name is actually on your side. What happens next is one of the most shocking moments you will ever witness.
Judge Caprio doesn't call the bailiff. He doesn't bang his gavel.
He just stares at Richard like a man holding a royal flush while his opponent bets the farm on a pair of twos.
Calmly, he asks, "So, you want me to speak to your wife? You think her presence here would clarify things?"
Richard sneers. "I think it would end your career if you don't call her."
"I dare you."
Judge Caprio looks past Richard toward the back of the courtroom gallery. "I don't need to call her, Mr. Sterling."
Is District Attorney Sterling present in the court?
Richard freezes. He slowly turns, a smug grin plastered on his face. He expects his wife to march down the aisle, scold the judge, and take him home.
But the heavy oak doors don't open. Instead, a woman rises from the back row. She has been sitting unnoticed the entire time.
She is wearing a sharp charcoal suit, hair pulled back tight.
She looks like a hawk.
Eleanor Sterling, the Iron Lady of Providence prosecution, hasn't been at work. She's been in the back row for 45 minutes, watching her husband mock the law, and she is not happy Eleanor walks down the center aisle. Her heels click like a ticking clock. The crowd parts.
Richard spreads his arms, relieved. "Oh, thank God. Tell him. Tell this clown who we are. Tell him this is all a misunderstanding." He reaches to grab her hand, a gesture of ownership. Eleanor doesn't take it. She doesn't slow. She walks past him as if he were invisible.
She stops at the prosecutor's table, sets down her briefcase, and turns to face the bench. She never looks at her husband.
Not once.
She says, "Your Honor, for the record, Eleanor Sterling, District Attorney for the City of Providence.
I am entering my appearance today not as a spouse but representing the people."
Richard's smile falters.
He looks confused.
He steps toward her.
Al, what are you doing?
Just tell him to drop the charges.
Eleanor turns slowly.
Her eyes are ice cold.
Be quiet, Richard.
The courtroom gasps. The silence is shattered. She turns back to the judge. Your Honor, the defendant suggests that my position should influence this court.
He is correct. It should.
I have reviewed the dash cam footage. I have read the victim's statement. And regarding the defendant, Richard Sterling, the prosecution formally recommends the maximum sentence allowed under Rhode Island law. We are asking for 18 months in the ACI, immediate revocation of his license, and zero bail. Richard's jaw literally drops. He staggers back as if punched.
What? Are you crazy? It's me. It's Richard. I'm your husband. Eleanor picks up a thick red folder marked confidential from her briefcase. I know exactly who you are, Richard. For 20 years, I have cleaned up your messes. I made phone calls when you got speeding tickets. I wrote apology notes to the waiters you screamed at. I convinced myself it was just stress. But when I saw that video, when I saw you leave a pregnant girl to die in the rain so you could play golf, she tosses the red folder onto the judge's bench. It lands with a heavy thud. I am done cleaning. Your Honor, this is a supplementary file containing 3 prior reckless driving incidents that were administratively dismissed in neighboring counties. I am submitting them today as evidence of character. He is not a victim of slow traffic. He is a predator on these roads and a danger to this community. Richard looks at his wife, then at the judge, then at the file holding all his secrets. His get-out-of-jail-free card has just become the prosecutor arguing for his destruction. His face drains of color. For the first time, he is completely alone. The arrogance is gone. The swagger is gone. In its place is pure, unadulterated panic.
The wife he treated like a political asset has handed the judge the ammunition to end his life as he knows it. Judge Caprio opens the red file Eleanor submitted. He reads briefly, shaking his head, then snaps it closed. Mr. Sterling, 5 minutes ago you told me that money fixes things.
You told me my career depended on your wife's mood.
You thought her power was your shield, but you forgot one thing: you cannot borrow integrity, and today her integrity has become your sword.
Richard pleads, voice cracking.
Judge, please.
I was emotional. I can apologize to the girl.
I'll pay for the hospital bills. I'll buy her a new car.
I'll even talk to her baby. Eleanor doesn't blink.
She begins packing her briefcase, signaling she is done with him. Judge Caprio interrupts.
The time for negotiation is over. You showed no remorse when you left a pregnant woman bleeding on the highway. You showed no remorse walking into this courtroom. You only found your conscience when you realized you were going to prison. That is not remorse, sir. That is fear.
He leans into the microphone, voice carrying the weight of the city. Richard Sterling, based on the evidence, your admission of fleeing the scene, and the aggravating factors presented by the district attorney, I am sentencing you as follows. First, on the charge of reckless endangerment and fleeing the scene, 18 months at the Adult Correctional Institute, to be served immediately.
No weekends. No work release.
Richard screams, 18 months for a traffic accident. The judge continues, second, your driving privileges in Rhode Island are permanently revoked.
You used a vehicle as a weapon.
You will never legally sit behind the wheel in this state again. Richard slumps against the table.
The Porsche. The status. The freedom.
All gone, but Judge Caprio isn't finished. One final piece of poetic justice. And finally, upon your release, you will complete 500 hours of community service, not filing papers in a library. You will join the highway cleanup crew, assigned to Interstate 95, the very highway where you nearly killed Sarah Jenkins. You will spend your days picking up trash, watching traffic go by, so you can remember what it feels like to be vulnerable on that shoulder.
You wanted to own the road, Mr. Sterling. Now you will clean it. The gavel slams down like a gunshot.
The sentence is passed, 18 months in a cell, a lifetime driving ban, and a future spent wearing a neon vest cleaning the road he once ruled. Richard screams as the bailiffs grab him.
Al, don't let them do this. Eleanor, I'm your husband.
Eleanor zips up her bag, nods once at the bailiff, and says, take him away.
Handcuffed immediately, the metal clicks shut, the sound of the end of his career.
As he's dragged out, he isn't shouting about rights.
He is screaming. His wife's name, Eleanor Sterling, stands at the prosecutor's table.
She puts her pen in her pocket, watches the courtroom door close on her husband, takes a deep breath, adjusts her blazer, and walks down the aisle alone. She looks stronger than when she entered.
She doesn't look back. She gathers her files, thanks the judge with a respectful nod, and exits.
She leaves as a single woman, but for the first time in 20 years, she is walking in her own shadow.
She chose the law over a man who didn't deserve loyalty. 6 months later, the fallout is complete. Eleanor Sterling filed for divorce the week Richard went to prison.
The public rallied behind her, hailing her as the DA who couldn't be bought. She won re-election in a historic landslide, but the royal victory belongs to Sarah Jenkins.
She recovered fully. Baby Leo was born healthy. Richard's insurance, terrified of bad publicity, settled immediately.
She received enough to cover all medical bills, buy a safe new car, and finish her nursing degree debt-free. And Richard? If you drive down I-95 North today, look closely at the median. You might see a man who once wore Italian silk, now sweating in polyester orange. He served 18 months and is completing 500 hours of service. The man who thought he was too important to stop is now cleaning up the mess left by others.
He lost his license, his reputation, his wife, and his freedom.
But perhaps, while staring at the asphalt, he is finally finding humility. As Judge Caprio once said, justice is blind for a reason. It doesn't care if you live in a penthouse or a shelter.
It doesn't care who you know or who you married.
The moment you think you are above the law is the moment the law will remind you how heavy it really is.
Richard Sterling tried to use privilege as a weapon and it blew up in his face. Eleanor Sterling proved that integrity is thicker than blood.
And Sarah Jenkins proved that survivors always get the last laugh. Don't forget to like this video if you believe nobody, absolutely nobody, is above the law.
Drop a comment below. Did Eleanor Sterling do the right thing turning on her husband, or should she have stood by him? We want to hear your take.
Hit subscribe for more stories where the gavel comes down hard on the entitled.